Last week I did a video on paths to a PhD in Germany. That brings up the question, what do researchers earn in Germany? Although money isn't a researcher's main motivation, it's nice to know if you can make a living as one. Researchers can work in public organizations or in the industry. Salaries in the public sector are determined by collective wage agreements. Therefore, let's start there and let's start small. You can already do research in the scope of a student job. For example, student researchers in Berlin's universities earn €12.96 per hour in 2022. They mostly work 40, 60 or 80 hours per month. That amounts to the according gross salary here. The good news is that you don't pay tax if you earn less than €10,347 total in 2022. This is the basic tax-free amount for a single. That means your net salary is almost as high as your gross salary. Now let's go and see what graduates earn. We're going to look at full-time salaries. However, you should know that many researchers who pursue their PhD work part-time. From my experience, that totally depends on the field. In chemistry and biology, for example, part-time is very common. In engineering, people work mostly full-time. Part-time PhD candidates are still occupied full-time with their PhDs. It's only a temporary phase, but still, on average, it takes 4.5 years to finish a PhD in Germany. Some researchers should be aware that they won't be able to generate wealth during that time. Let's talk about numbers. Here's a website that I'll link in the description. It contains an overview of salaries of the wage agreements for the public sector in Germany. There are several tables and the abbreviations can be confusing. The TVÖD tables are relevant for federal administration and municipal employers. The TVL tables are valid for bodies of the Germany's 16 federal states. You'll find general tables but also some special tables for certain occupational groups. On employers' websites, you can normally find out what table they apply. I want to talk about the salaries in universities first. Let's take state universities in Berlin. Here, the general TVL wage agreement is valid. There are 15 groups. Here are just a few examples of who falls into each group. There's also a 380-page long list of jobs for all groups. Depending on your education and occupation, you fall into a certain group. The vast majority of researchers that have a diploma or master's degree fall into group 13. Some researchers with very difficult projects, big responsibilities, and outstanding experience may fall into group 14. Let's focus on group 13. Here's the monthly salary overview as of today. You can switch it to yearly if you like. I'm sure you're confused about the many numbers. No worries, I'll talk about that. If you have no prior work experience, you will earn what it says in the first column. A fresh master's graduate that starts in a university in Germany gets €4,188.38 gross per month. Let's look at the salary in more detail by clicking on it. After all deductions for tax, pension, health insurance, etc., you get a net salary of €2,542.46. There's also a Christmas bonus of €1,893.15 gross, which pushes up the annual gross and the net values that you can see here at the bottom. Assume that you have a 50% part-time position. You can easily enter that in the website's calculator. Then you have a net income of €1,423.78. The net is higher than you might have expected compared to the full-time net income. It's because with a smaller gross salary, you pay less taxes and duties. The part-time salary is just enough to get by. The full-time entry salary, however, is quite decent. It's higher than most entry salaries that you get in small companies with 100 employees. But it's also less if you compare it to an entry-level job in a big company. I have good news though. The salary increases over time. Each group has several levels. Group 13 has 6 levels. After 1 year, you're already in Group 2 and earn €150 more net. After another 2 years, you're in Group 3. After a total of 15 years, you get a net salary of €3,445.01. That's an annual gross salary of €75,177.46. Of course, this value will be higher in 15 years from today. The wage agreements are adjusted every year to account for inflation and other factors. If you can earn more in the industry, totally depends on your field. As an engineer, you can of course reach an annual salary of $100K after 15 years. If you stay in a small company, you could even be earning less than a university researcher. Your biggest problem with a career in research isn't the money. The pay is fine. The biggest problem is to stay on a research path. Most contracts are temporary. It's a huge issue to hop from one funded project to another. I know people who sign 20 employment contracts in a time frame of 10 years. The perspectives of getting a permanent position as postdoc or professor are extremely limited. If you're among the very few people who get a professor title, you will of course earn more. The base salary differs in Germany's federal states. Here's an example for Berlin. Here you can see the monthly gross salary for junior professors and the salary for professors in universities of applied sciences. Full professors in state universities get 7,160.36 euros per month. However, that is only the minimum base salary. Professors can get more based on negotiations. They also get additional perks and performance bonuses. For example, if they acquire high amounts of third-party funding. In Berlin, the mean annual gross salary of a professor is about 100,000 euros per year. If you think about it, people with that kind of experience can earn significantly more in the industry. Okay, we covered universities. You can also work in one of the many public research organizations. The salary structure is often according to the better paying public wage agreements. Some organizations like Fraunhofer do very application-oriented research. They want to attract skilled people by offering better monetary compensation. That's why some organizations offer performance-dependent bonuses. Also, the chances are higher to get promoted to a higher group of the wage agreement. What about the industry? It's difficult to give a general statement about researcher salaries in the industry. There are simply too many factors. The broad range goes anywhere from 50,000 euros to above 100,000 euros. You can earn that much in a pharmaceutical company. As you can imagine though, there are comparably few positions for researchers in the industry. In summary, a position as a researcher will provide you with a decent salary from start to end. You can earn more with a classic job in big companies. Compared to employees in small companies, you may even earn more as a researcher in university. Your biggest problem is to secure long-term employment as a researcher. For most people, that's a temporary right. Sooner or later, they'll land in the industry. The best outcome of your research phase is you got a PhD title and you gained some teaching experience. That will give you a chance to become a permanent postdoc or professor later, although the opportunities are extremely rare. I hope you're still motivated about becoming a researcher. Almost half of my students choose that path after graduation, at least in the beginning of their careers. Don't forget to subscribe and see you soon.